It started like any ordinary school day, but the moment Zariah King stepped onto the campus of Stone Ridge High, everything changed. She didn't come in loud, flashy, or trying to prove anything. She was quiet, calm, and carried herself with a confidence that didn't need words. But in a school ruled by clicks, likes, and shallow popularity, silence is threatening, and the self-proclaimed queen bees didn't like what they saw. Bria and her crew thought Zariah was just another transfer student, someone they could mock, intimidate, and slap into submission like they'd done to so many others. What they didn't know was that Zariah had spent years training under a former Special Forces soldier, her own father, and that beneath her cool exterior was a deadly fighter who could dismantle a threat in seconds. When the bullies cornered her in the locker room ready to strike, they had no idea they were writing the first line of their own downfall. Because Zariah didn't fight for pride or attention, she fought to end things. And by the time it was over, she wouldn't just earn respect. She'd become a legend. The first day of school at Stone Ridge High was always a scene. Students poured in through the gates like a flood of noise and style, brand. New shoes squeaked on the polished floors, locker doors slammed like dominoes, and the air buzzed with gossip from summer break. Old cliques reassembled like clockwork. Jocks were already tossing footballs in the quad. Theater kids practiced lines in loud whispers. Influencers did slow-motion struts for TikTok content. Everyone wanted to be seen, but that Monday morning something different happened. Just as first period was about to begin, a deep room echoed through the parking lot. Heads turned. Conversations halted. A sleek black motorcycle rolled up like something out of a movie, matte finish, silver trim, engine humming low like it had something to say. The rider stopped right in front of the school steps and kicked down the stand. Off stepped a girl. Tall, lean, and steady, she swung her leg over the bike with ease, adjusted her leather jacket, and pulled off her helmet, revealing long, tightly braided hair. Her expression was unreadable. She didn't smile. She didn't look around. She walked like someone who already knew exactly where she was going and didn't care who watched. Her name, Zariah King. The name spread like wildfire within minutes, even before she stepped into the main hallway. Students whispered behind lockers and between lockers, pulling up her transfer record on their phones. Stone Ridge was a private school known for its elite programs and its even more elite drama. A girl like Zariah wasn't expected. She wasn't in the brochure. And that made her a mystery worth unraveling. She's from Atlanta. Someone whispered, "No, I heard she was expelled from a military academy." Girl, she beat up 6 guys and broke a teacher's nose, had to be homeschooled after that. The rumors were wild. No one really knew the truth, but it didn't matter. Zariah's vibe did all the talking. She walked through the school like she didn't owe the world a thing. Eyes forward, back straight, hands in her pockets, and not a single flinch as everyone stared. She wore combat boots and black jeans like armor and moved through the crowd like it didn't exist. And that was exactly the problem, because in a school like Stone Ridge there was a very specific order. Social, stylish, and unspoken. At the top were Bria, Lassie, and Mina, the Platinum Pack, daughters of lawyers, executives, and influencers. Flawless Instagram feeds, designer everything. They weren't just popular, they were feared. The kind of girls who could ruin reputations with a screenshot. One cold glance from Bria could turn a freshman into a pariah. Their rule wasn't just accepted, it was expected. And that morning, Bria saw the way people looked at Zariah. She saw the curiosity, the quiet awe, even among the boys who usually bowed to the Platinum Pack's charm. It was just a flicker of attention, but that's all it took to make Bria feel threatened. The 3 of them watched from the second-floor railing, eyes narrowed. She didn't even look up at anyone. Lassie said, twirling her hair, "She's trying way too hard to look like she's not trying." Mina scoffed. But Bria didn't say a word at first. She just watched Zariah walk, head slightly tilted, a smirk tugging at her lips. Finally, she spoke, her voice low and sharp. "She thinks she's better than us, walking in like she owns the place. She doesn't even belong here," Lassie added. "She needs to be put in her place." Bria hissed, eyes locked on Zariah like a lion stalking prey. At that moment, it wasn't about whether Zariah had done anything. It was about the fact that she existed, calm, beautiful, and unapologetically different, and that was enough. What no one realized, not even Zariah, was that her first step into Stone Ridge High had just set off a chain of events no one could stop. Not the teachers, not the rules, not even the Platinum Pack. The quiet girl on the motorcycle wasn't just here to survive high school. She was here to change it. 2 days had passed since Zariah King rolled into Stone Ridge High like a storm cloaked in silence. In that short time, the rumors about her only grew louder, while her presence became harder to ignore. She wasn't loud, she didn't show off, but somehow she still stole the hallway every time she walked through it. And Bria hated that. Lassie and Mina followed Bria's lead as always. It wasn't about what Zariah had done. It was about who she was. A girl with power that didn't beg for permission. A girl who didn't need a crowd to matter, that kind of quiet confidence. It was a threat, and for girls like the Platinum Pack, threats had to be silenced, so they planned a message. A warning, and they delivered it in the place they thought Zariah would be most vulnerable. The gym locker room was cold and damp, its tiled floor echoing every footstep. The last period of the day had just ended, and most of the girls had already changed and left. Zariah was alone, unbothered, towel around her shoulders as she walked to her locker at the far end. She unlatched the door and paused. Shaving cream exploded from the top shelf, oozing over her books, shoes, and gym bag. Bright pink glitter coated everything like a cruel, sparkly snowfall. And taped across the inside of the door was a note neatly written in thick black Sharpie. "Go back to wherever you came from, you don't belong here." Zariah stared at it for a moment, no flinch. No frown, just a silence. Then, slowly, she peeled the note off the locker and folded it in half. Calmly, she dropped it into the trash bin beside her. That's when the locker room door slammed shut behind her. 3 sets of footsteps echoed on the tile floor. Bria, Lassie, Mina. They walked in like a pack of wolves, heels clicking, eyes cold, ready for a show. "You didn't think we'd let you just walk around like you own this school, did you?" Bria asked, blowing a pink bubble with her gum until it popped with a sharp snap. Zariah didn't move. She didn't even fully turn around. "Y'all need attention that bad," she said, her voice low and flat. Lassie rolled her eyes. "You've got a smart mouth for someone standing alone." Mina smirked. "Yeah, where's your fan club now?" Bria stepped forward. "You're not better than anyone here. You're just some random chick from nowhere." Zariah finally turned, slowly. She looked at each of them one by one as if deciding whether they were worth her time. Her eyes weren't angry. They were calculating, cool, controlled. "You done talking?" she asked. That was all Lassie needed to snap. With a sneer, she stormed forward and raised her hand. "You got a smart mouth. Let's fix that." She swung. Fast, confident, a slap meant to humiliate, but her hand never landed. Zariah's arm moved in a blur and in the space between one heartbeat and the next. She caught Lassie's wrist midair. Not with a grab, not with a punch, with 2 fingers. The room went dead quiet. Lassie's eyes widened. She tried to yank her hand back, but it was like her wrist had been locked in a vice. Zariah stepped in closer, still holding the strike effortlessly. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Try that again." Lassie froze. Bria's mouth opened slightly, and even Mina took a step back. Something had shifted just enough for them to feel it. This wasn't just some tough girl. This was someone trained. Someone who knew exactly what she was capable of. Zariah let go. Lassie stumbled backward into Bria, rubbing her wrist in disbelief. "You're insane," Bria hissed. Zariah raised an eyebrow. "Nah, I'm just patient." She walked past them like they weren't even there. But just before reaching the door, she stopped and turned back. "I don't need to belong here," she said evenly. "I just need y'all to remember that trying me is your last mistake." And with that, she pushed open the locker room door and disappeared into the hallway. The Platinum Pack stood frozen in silence. None of them said it aloud. but they all felt it in their bones. They hadn't just picked a fight with the new girl. They had poked a lion in a cage, and Zariah had just shown them how thin the bars really were. Bria staggered back, holding her wrist like it was burning. Her perfectly manicured nails trembled slightly. That cold, smug mask she always wore, gone. Who the hell are you? She snapped, voice a mix of fear and fury. Zariah didn't answer. She didn't gloat. She didn't shout. She simply walked out slow, steady, and silent, leaving the three girls behind like broken glass on the floor. It was the kind of silence that made a bigger noise than screaming ever could. The very next morning, Stone Ridge High was on fire. Not literally, but socially it might as well have been. Every hallway conversation, every class whisper, every buzzing phone screen had one name and one video: Zariah King. Someone had secretly filmed the locker room showdown from the moment Bria and her girls walked in to the exact second Zariah caught Lassie's hand in midair like it was nothing. The video spread like wildfire: TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, even Reddit, over 100,000 views by noon. Zariah didn't even have a social account. She didn't need one. She became a legend overnight. Students whispered when she walked by. Some moved out of her way. Others just stared in awe. Even the teachers heard about it, even the staff. And one of them was watching very closely. After sixth period, Mr. Delgado, the school's self, defense instructor, asked Zariah to stay behind. He was a broad-shouldered man in his early 40s, calm eyes with a military sharpness. Students called him Coach D, and most knew better than to test him. Before teaching, he'd served 2 tours overseas as a Marine and trained elite-level fighters in hand-to-hand combat. He waited until the classroom emptied. Then he leaned back on his desk, arms folded. "I recognized that move," he said, watching her carefully. "The way you stopped that girl's wrist, too. Finger control, that's not some street trick." Zariah raised an eyebrow. She didn't deny it, just stayed quiet, her hands stuffed in the pockets of her jacket. Mr. Delgado continued. "That was textbook Krav Maga. Clean, efficient, you've had serious training." Zariah finally spoke. "My dad taught me. He's ex-Special Forces. We moved around a lot, military towns mostly. I started when I was 9. By 14, I was the youngest in my state to get certified." Delgado nodded slowly. "That explains it." Zariah looked away. "I don't like fighting, though. That locker room thing, I didn't want it, but I don't lose." That last line hung in the air for a moment. "Heavy, cold, honest, I believe you," Delgado said. Then he stood up. "Look, I don't usually say this to students, but we've got something at this school. Off the books, invite only." Zariah turned her head slightly. "Interested but guarded, underground fight club," he said bluntly. "No weapons, no grades, just discipline, strategy, control. It's where kids who don't fit into team sports go to compete legally. Some are future soldiers. Others just need a place to belong." Zariah's eyes flickered for a moment. "And you're inviting me?" Delgado shrugged. "Let's just say we've never had anyone walk in here and shut down 3 students with a single move." There was a pause. Then Zariah asked, "What's the catch?" "No catch." He said, "Just rules. 1, respect the space. 2, no showboating. 3, if you fight with purpose." She looked at him, hard, unreadable. Depends who's watching. Delgado smiled just slightly. "That's the right answer." Zariah walked out of that classroom with more than an invitation. She walked out with purpose. For the first time since arriving at Stone Ridge, she had a choice, one that wasn't about surviving fake smiles or dodging petty drama. She had been taught to stay in the shadows, to observe, to wait until there was no other option but to act. But now someone finally saw her for what she truly was. Not just a mystery or a rumor, a weapon, a strategist, a fighter. She wasn't just defending herself anymore. She was stepping into the arena. And while the school buzzed over what they thought they knew about Zariah King, they still hadn't seen anything yet. The Platinum Pack wasn't finished, not by a long shot. After the locker room incident went viral, their pride wasn't just bruised, it was shattered. Bria's carefully constructed image of control had been cracked in front of the entire school, and every hour that the video stayed online, it only got worse. Zariah King had become an overnight legend, But for Bria, Lassie, and Mina, she was something else. A threat that had to be eliminated socially, publicly, permanently. So they planned something bigger, something meant to humiliate her on a grander scale, their weapon. A party. It was Friday night, and Blake Hanson's mansion was lit literally. Colored LED lights bathed the pool in a purple glow. Music thumped through massive outdoor speakers, and the air was thick with the smell of chlorine, pizza, and teen drama. Nearly the whole school was there, drinks in hand, phones ready, all eager to catch the next viral moment. And the Platinum Pack made sure Zariah was invited. She didn't usually go to parties, too loud, too fake. But that night something pulled her in. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was curiosity, or maybe she already knew they were coming for her, and she was ready. Zariah arrived in all black, same as always fitted jeans, combat boots, cropped hoodie. She blended in just enough to avoid attention, but stood out just enough to spark whispers. There she is. Yo, that's her from the video. She really caught that slap like it was nothing. Zariah moved through the crowd like she didn't hear a word. But the Platinum Pack was waiting. Lassie made the first move. As Zariah passed near the pool, Lassie stepped in front of her, arms crossed, fake smile stretched across her lips. "Glad you could make it," she said, voice syrupy with venom. "Didn't think you were the party type." Zariah kept her eyes steady. "Didn't think you were the ambush type." Lassie's smile twitched, but she didn't respond. Then, without warning, Bria and Mina came from behind. A sharp shove to her back. Zariah stumbled forward straight toward the edge of the pool. Gasps exploded around them. Phones came out instantly, but Zariah didn't fall. Instead, in one fluid, lightning, fast motion, she twisted her body mid-stumble, grabbed Mina's wrist, and used her attacker's momentum to flip her clean over her shoulder. Splash! Mina hit the water with a scream. Zariah spun just as Bria swung at her head. Zariah ducked low, the punch flying over her. Bria tried again, sloppy, angry, but Zariah sidestepped and grabbed her by the arm, twisting just enough to force Bria to drop to her knees with a cry. Before she could even catch her breath, Lassie lunged, but Zariah was ready. She dropped low and swept her leg around in a powerful arc. Lassie's feet left the ground, and she tumbled sideways straight into the decorative bushes with a loud grunt. The music didn't stop, but the crowd did. Every eye was on Zariah standing at the edge of the pool, calm, unbothered, untouched. She looked down at Bria, who was now sitting on the concrete, hair tangled, lip trembling with rage and humiliation. "You think you're better than us?" Bria snapped, voice shaking. Zariah leaned in slowly, just close enough for Bria to hear her clearly over the music. "I don't think," she said, cool as ever, "I know." And with that, she turned and walked away, cutting through the stunned crowd like a blade through silk. Phones were everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, Discord, even Twitter. Within an hour, #ZariahStrike3 was trending in the local feeds. The video showed everything. The flip, the dodge, the leg sweep, the Platinum Pack canceled overnight. Their once powerful reign dissolved under the glare of 1,000 LED-lit screens. Students who once feared them now laughed behind their backs. Their cruelty didn't look cool anymore, it looked desperate. Zariah, however, didn't smile. She didn't flex for the cameras or post a single video. She left the party in silence the way she'd arrived, but everyone who saw what happened knew the truth. Zariah wasn't just a fighter. She wasn't just fearless. She was untouchable. Monday morning at Stone Ridge High didn't feel the same. The air was heavier, quieter, but not with tension, with respect. It wasn't fear that followed Zariah as she walked down the main hallway that day. It was something deeper. Heads turned, students nodded silently. Whispers still trailed behind her, but they no longer carried rumors or gossip. They carried admiration. In just 1 week, Zariah King had gone from the mysterious new girl to a campus icon. She hadn't just survived the Platinum Pack. She had dismantled their power without breaking a sweat, without ever throwing a punch in anger. The school had never seen anything like it. The moment she stepped into homeroom, her teacher handed her a note from the front office. "Principal Carver wants to see you." Zariah didn't flinch, didn't sigh. She just tucked the note into her hoodie pocket and headed to the office. Principal Carver, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and a reputation for fairness, didn't waste time when she arrived. "I heard about the locker room and the incident at Blake's party," he said, folding his hands on his desk. Zariah stood quietly, waiting for the inevitable detention, suspension, maybe even expulsion. But instead he leaned back and gave a small, thoughtful smile. "Zariah, what you did wasn't just impressive, it was measured, controlled. You showed strength without violence and restraint most adults can't manage under pressure. That's leadership." She blinked, unsure what to say. He continued, "Mr. Delgado tells me you've got serious training. We've been trying to expand our self-defense program here, and he recommended you for a mentorship role, assistant instructor." Zariah stared at him. "Me? Yes," he said firmly. "You'd be helping teach confidence and discipline, especially to students who have been bullied or feel unsafe. This isn't about fighting, it's about empowerment." Zariah nodded slowly. Something settled in her chest, a quiet yes. She didn't need to be the center of attention, but if she could help others the way she'd helped herself, maybe being here wasn't just survival anymore. Maybe it was purpose. By the end of the week, posters went up for the self-defense classes. New classes starting. Learn to stand up, stay calm, be strong. Led by Mr. Delgado and Zariah King, the turnout was bigger than anyone expected. Freshmen, seniors, even kids who'd been invisible all year showed up. Zariah stood at the front of the gym, hands behind her back as Delgado introduced her. This young lady taught the entire school something without saying much. Now, she's going to teach you with even less. She didn't boast. She didn't show off flashy moves. She taught with quiet focus how to block, how to fall without injury, how to stay grounded under pressure, and most importantly, how to stand tall in the face of fear. For the first time, people saw Zariah not as a fighter, but as a leader. And what about Bria, Lassie, and Mina? They tried to lay low after the party, tried to act like nothing happened. But Stone Ridge had a long memory and even longer Wi-Fi. Their control evaporated, their invites stopped, their comments filled with laughing emojis instead of heart eyes. Within a month, their families quietly arranged transfers, new schools, new starts. They didn't say goodbye. And no one asked where they went. The real turning point came during a Q and in self-defense class. One of the younger students, a soft-spoken freshman named Kelsey, raised her hand. "Why didn't you ever hit them back? I mean, you could have, right?" The room went still. Zariah looked up from wrapping her hand in gauze. She walked over and knelt beside Kelsey. "I could have," she said softly. "But fighting with ego is just chaos. Anybody can swing, anybody can rage. But if you fight to prove something, you never win because there's always someone else watching, waiting to beat you at your own game." She stood and looked around the room. "The best fighters don't fight for ego," she said clearly. "They fight to end the fight." The room was silent for a beat, then someone clapped, then another. Soon the gym filled with applause, not just for what she said, but for what she represented. Strength with purpose, confidence without cruelty, power without pride. By the end of the semester, Zariah wasn't just that girl from the video. She was a mentor, a protector, a living lesson, and the name Zariah King. It became more than a trend, it became a legend. Zariah didn't come to Stone Ridge looking for trouble. She came for a fresh start, but when trouble found her, she didn't flinch. She didn't swing first, but she made sure she finished last. What made her truly powerful wasn't just her fighting skills. It was her discipline, her silence in the face of ignorance, and her choice to teach instead of destroy. In a world full of noise, Zariah taught everyone one unforgettable lesson. True strength speaks quietly, but it's always heard loud and clear. Fire, wow, what a wild ride, right? If you made it to the end, you already knows. Zariah wasn't just a fighter, she was a force of nature. Flexed medium, dark collision back, hand index pointing right, drop a comment below. What would you do if someone tried to bully you like that? Speech balloon, do you think Zariah handled it the right way? Or would you have gone even harder? Movie camera, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more epic stories, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an upload. Until next time, remember, never mess with the quiet ones. They're usually the ones who walk away after flipping the whole game, smiling hundreds